And that will be £17.48, please, Mr. Vettel. Do you have a Nectar card?
Yeah, somewhere here.
It's worth finding it. We've got a promotion on today. If you've got enough on your card, you can win a prize.
Oh, here it is.
Lovely. Now, let me see. Oh, I'm sorry. It seems like you're only 1 point short.
This is Gareth Jones on Speed. I'm the Gareth, he's the Richard.
Hello.
He's the Zog.
Hello.
And I thought we'd talk about the future because, well, we do that from time to time. There's no two ways about it. As long as Time's Arrow insists on travelling in this universe where causality means that stuff happens after the thing that made it happen.
Although the mathematics of general relativity, there is no difference between the forward and back directions along your time axis, so there's no reason for one to be preferred over the other.
Well, that's it for Gareth Jones on Speed. Join us next week where we talk about something which hasn't already happened. Join us next week for last week's episode. Is that how it works?
Sorry, we can't serve you.
We got off to a rocket start this time. I can't remember the time which we've done a programme and got into general relativity in less than 30 seconds.
That's the time dilation effect for you. Anyway, yes, back...
I can't think about time because it makes my head burn. It's just one of those things that I genuinely don't understand.
That's the time dilation effect.
I don't even understand what he said. I don't know why you're laughing.
Okay.
I don't understand. No, don't explain it.
No.
I'm really worried.
We'll have the relativity
you know, if you
masterclass
run
later.
something too hot, like a computer or a car or almost anything, it'll just go pop and it'll stop working. If I start thinking about time too much, I'm really worried that my brain will just go pop and then I'll have to jab a little paper clip into the reset hole because...
It's tricky stuff. So,
it's really... I mean, I understand, obviously...
Back to the Future.
Let's not talk about it.
How very good. Back to the Future. Yeah, very good. All right. Should we talk about sport rather than cars first? Should we talk about Formula 1, the future of Formula 1? 2014 rules are more or less settled. We know they're going to be little 1.5-cylinder engines.
6-cylinder engines, turbos. Somehow, I think that might favour Renault to some extent. I think they might do a little...
just because they were quite good at it before?
Yeah, that's a good reason, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
if you want to really stop Renault having any success in Formula 1, you should insist that all of the cars were large executive cars.
That'd stop
because
them.
immediately Renault would fail catastrophically.
Yes. The F1
See also
Laguna.
Peugeot.
Yeah. Or Fiat.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, any European manufacturer that isn't Teutonic in base. Yeah.
Although the Ferrari engined Lancia...
Thema.
Was it?
Thema 8.32.
Yeah,
stop it. You've set me off again, haven't you?
I just wrote a thing.
Buy them second-hand, your first service
Did you?
bill.
Yeah, just a little thing. And I was doing a little bit of research into it. And one of the funny things about that car is that it was barely, if at all, faster than the Thema Turbo.
Why?
Which had a little four-cylinder. Just because, I suppose, extra weight. And actually, that
automatic
engine, you'd imagine that, no, it was a manual, but it's a 3-litre Ferrari V8. It was quite heavily modified over the one from the 308 to the extent that completely different crank, amongst other things, and it ran in the opposite direction to make it suitable for being put in the front of a front-wheel drive car rather than in the middle of a rear-wheel drive car. And there's some stories that I could never get to the bottom of, that those engines were so different to the ones in the Ferraris, they had to be built on an entirely separate production line at Ducati. But I've never got to the bottom of whether...
So it's basically a very sensible, cheap...
Yeah, exactly.
Sort of
and the thing is
that
it wasn't actually super powerful. I forget the figures now, but it was sort of 210 horsepower or something like that. I forget now, I might be wrong, but it wasn't as if it was sort of rippling with 480 horsepower.
Let's find out.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, can you look something up for us on that electric computer over there? The Lancia Thema, Thema, 8.32 bhp. Let's find out what the power output of that car was.
Can we have a drum roll, please?
Yeah, here it comes.
We can have this.
We go live to Google.
And can we have the scores from Germany, please?
From Italy.
This exact
Luxembourg,
format was the basis of a game show that a friend of mine came up with, which I think has been commissioned for some cable channel. Where
getting people to do Google searches for whatever comes into your head.
The contestants had to think of questions, knowing the answers in their head,
right,
and then the other people would try and guess it, and then they had a person there who would check it.
The adjudicator.
In fact, it was piloted on.
We have an answer.
What are you guessing?
Well, Richard remembers about 210. I think he's about...
Yep.
He's right. Good lad. 212. Well done, Richard. That's why you're on
full
this
10
show.
points.
Thank you. Well, there
And
we
you
go.
get
So
to
I
go
would have
first
won
in the
a
next
round
round.
on my friend Paul's show.
Lovely.
So, what were we talking about?
The future.
Not very fast. Oh, no, I was going to say Lancia Thema 832, not very fast, and the future is definitely not putting V8s in the front of front-wheel drive executive cars. If you're a Formula 1 team, it is probably 1.5 litre V6s.
I like that.
But I read a very interesting interview with Gordon Murray the other day.
Gordon
which he
Murray
was
of
talking about-
Lotus.
That'll be the chap. The fabulous and talented designer of many great F1 cars of the past, the designer of the McLaren F1, and recently the designer of the T25 and T27.
Something about Gordon Murray and the McLaren F1, because it's often assumed that Peter Stevens, who's a very talented designer of the exterior and interior of cars, a stylist you might call him, did the McLaren F1, but actually most of the look of that car was done by Gordon Murray. And he got Peter Stevens in just to sort of do the final detailing because, quote unquote, Peter's better at drawing wheels than I am.
Because they originally had square wheels.
I don't think yeah, exactly. Or triangles, very experimental. But so he's not just an engineer, but he fancies his hands as a pencilman as well.
You were saying
well, apart from the interesting stuff he was saying about the manufacturing side of the T25 and T27 and how actually the iStream process, the clever manufacturing process that goes with the design, is the really clever thing rather than the design.
What is the principle of iStream? Can you summarise it?
It's essentially a manufacturing process that involves, rather than having, for example, a lot of very sort of heavy industrial machinery on site, stamping and pressing a lot of metal and making all that kind of stuff, you're bringing together components, pre-painted body panels from external suppliers. Work that's done with the metal on site, for example, is in principle much simpler processes, bending and welding and fairly simple processes rather than the heavier stuff.
Outsourcing.
That is a part of it, but the other part is having much simpler assembly and manufacturing processes on site so that you can set up your factory to make your T25s, your T27s at a significantly lower cost to a traditional car manufacturing plant, I think.
Now, the problem they've got here...
It doesn't sound like a revolution, does it?
Well, it's quite clever, intelligent designer way of sort of changing the process. Now, the thing is that these cars, this is T225 and then the electric one is a T27,
That's right, yeah.
Gordon Murray has no intention of making it a production car himself.
No, he's licensing
the idea.
Other people
He's licensing the idea. So if nobody buys it, it will never happen.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we've talked about this a little bit on the show before, about like an Apple car or some other sort of, Google car, Virgin, people, certainly big corporations, but who market themselves as a bit groovy and kind of down with it and radical, and those three probably be three great examples. One of...
Liberal Democrats.
Well... steady. But the cars themselves, they will need to be bought by somebody, and I don't think it would be an existing car company, because they are so set up in the main to stamp out metal boxes in huge factories. To completely rejig their production processes right now would be incredibly expensive. They'd have to throw away a lot of what they've been
everything that they've learned. That's right,
and that's one of the reasons why Gordon Murray is saying this is actually quite a revolutionary thing he's come up with here. That it's
making manufacturing available to non-manufacturers.
It makes the barrier of entry to becoming a car manufacturer much, much lower. Yeah. And that is a significant difference. It's potentially a mini revolution. We're also seeing other manufacturing technologies coming along, maybe, that perhaps 3D printing, and how 3D printing, which listeners may know is this process by which, you may have seen small sort of plastic resin kind of items that are made in 3D printers where you've basically got something like a tank of clear liquid which can be set using ultraviolet light, laser beams, things like that, and essentially you build up in layers from the bottom of your tank, you build up a solid plastic shape, and it's a very useful technique for
that could
prototyping,
be shape.
It could be hollow. I mean, some people have actually used 3D printers to make structural components, effectively custom-made plastic structural components. Jay Leno, I believe, uses a 3D printer to prototype metal bits for his old car collection that he then gets a machine shop, a specialist mechanic, to make in metal, and he uses the 3D printing, because he's a bit of a geek, he can do this stuff. He can make that little shape with his 3D printer, and he can check that it fits, it's the right thing, and when he's happy with it, he takes it off to the machine shop. And in fact, this 3D printing technology has now evolved to a point where, or there's a new variant on it, which is 3D printing with metal. Airbus, EADS, have started manufacturing some components using 3D printing in metal.
So they've got
this is
a powder in a liquid or something, and then you zap it with something, and then it creates a shape?
I don't know.
Right, okay,
Short answer, I don't know. I know it is a process where they turn metal powder into a solid thing, and it's not sintering in a mould. It's not that process that, you may know, where you basically pack metal powder into a mould, heat it, and you then get a solid thing out. Yeah. It's not that. It's
layer by layer.
It's some form of layer by layer building up a...
Well, this is, what's interesting about this is that you don't need a mould, you don't need a press, you don't need a die. All these normal
those
ways
expensive,
of
wasteful
things.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder what sort of metal you're using here, whether it only works with very high-grade aircraft aluminium, or whether there's some other thing they're doing here, and what kind of shapes it can do, because on a more sort of normal level, and perhaps more relevant to a lot of people who are listening to this, as cars get older and you've got some beloved old car, and you find that suddenly you can't get the bits for you, particularly even like panels, you suddenly find, you're a massive aficionado of, I don't know, something a little bit obscure.
Morgan three-wheelers.
Yeah,
that's
from the 50s and 60s are sort of almost a bit too mundane to be really cared for with an owner's car. I don't know, Vauxhall Viva or something like that. And they rotted away. But you love your Viva, and you need a new front wing for it, because it's got a bit dinged. Now, at some point in the future, assuming it doesn't have to have your front wing made from aero-spec aluminium, but something a little more prosaic and affordable, you can at least hold out some hope that they could use a 3D printer to print you a new wing.
Yeah, I think...
rather than having to just scour scrapyards or hope that some ex-Vauxhall dealer turns up a load of them in the back of their garage.
You'd still have to scan the existing wing with a laser to give you a 3D.
Unless yours is the only car left. There are other Vivas on the road. You just need to ask nicely to Terry from the club, and can I borrow a front wing off you, Terry? And then scan it in. I'm taking it to the Airbus factory, actually, and then they can make... And then you go, what do you like? Well, no, but Clive needs one for his Viva, and then you've got the wings knocked off.
Why not? Yeah, that's certainly a possible future.
It would be fiercely expensive to have a new wing pressed, because you have to have the
dies cut to make it.
Yeah. Whereas a 3D printer is a generic thing that can produce
any shape,
anything, as long as it's smaller than...
Terry, I think actually I've always fancied slightly more flared arches on my Viva. Could you do that for me?
Easily.
Just the machine there.
But theoretically, I would imagine you can leave gaps. If you're printing something, you can leave a gap which says don't print here for the width of one molecule. You could therefore, in theory, build an internal combustion engine with the piston and the crank and the conrod already made in one printing sweep.
Two reasons why I think that might not work, just off the top of my head. First of all, no surface treatment for any of the bits, and you very often in engines need kind of surface treatment on some of the metals. Secondly, you tend to have different metals rather than it all being made of a single metal. And thirdly, I don't know about tolerance.
You'd have to take it all apart again, wouldn't you? Because you'd need to put piston rings and things in.
Again, the different metal stuff.
There's a lot of different materials, you're right.
Yeah, I don't know, but I think that this kind of technology, 3D printing, is probably intrinsically best suited to single things, a single continuous block of stuff, rather than intricate interlocking mechanisms which an engine
So at the moment 3D printing might be able to produce, let's say, a spanner, but it couldn't do a ratchet spanner.
Probably not, but
or scissors.
But I can't say I really know, to be honest.
Well, if you are a 3D printer and you fancy knocking us up some Gareth Jones on Speed scissors, do get in touch.
I'm glad that wasn't your 3D printing fantasy knocking us up, because I thought that could be really bad. I don't want to get knocked up by a 3D printer.
It would be a great fit, though, wouldn't it? Yeah. Here you go, sir. One front wing for a Vauxhall Viva. Next. Yes, sir. I'm here to pick up a bonnet from Mark 1 Scirocco. Mark 1 Scirocco bonnet. There you go. Next. How can I help you, sir? I'm here to collect the panel I ordered. The name's Johnson. Oh, Mr. Johnson. Yeah, here we go. Look, I'm sorry, mate. We've been having some trouble with one of the printers. This hasn't come out right at all. It's got some strange creases in it. And the shape's just, well, weird. I can't even work out what car you've ordered it for. It's a Tier 7. Oh, my mistake, Mr. Johnson. It's come out perfect. Yes, Petrol! With Gareth Jones on Speed! I did this thing on Twitter called Cars I Haven't Thought About for a While, simply because every now and again, as a car geek, something passes through your mind and you want to share that because, you enjoy thinking about that. It's obscurism is what it is, and the more obscure the car, the better. I think I've talked about things like the Panther 6, I think, got a mention, and the IAD Alien got a mention recently, which warmed my heart. Do you remember the IAD Alien?
I do.
Yeah, I love IAD stuff. Have done for 30 years or more now, I suppose.
What happened to IAD? Did they get bought by Daewoo?
That's right, and the Worthing Centre became Daewoo's UK Development Centre.
Daewoo went bust, so what happened?
Absorbed by GM.
But is that Worthing Technical Centre still going?
Yeah,
is
I think
it?
so. Look, Richard's now doing... I was going to ask Violet to look this up, but you picked up your machine. You checking?
Carry on talking while I sit down here.
Richard's doing some homework. We're supposed to be doing Cars I Haven't Thought About for a While thing, you see, and it's Richard's turn to speak about the car.
While Richard's on the computer there, why don't I offer my suggestion, the Citroen Light 15, which
but you think about the car all the time.
Well, no, but I realised it hadn't been on my mind recently. And when you raise the price, cars you haven't really thought recently, I realised that I haven't seen any around, because over the years of living in London,
there's one in Highbury.
I have seen them around actually reasonably quite often.
There's one in Battersea as well, I remember.
There used to be a couple parked just off the A41 up in North London. There was a spot on the South Bank that used to have a whole bevy of them. But it had been sort of out of mind for a while.
Why do you love that car so much?
It's beautiful in itself. There's an interesting engineering and history angle on it, in that it was the first front-wheel drive family car, essentially, and it's a 1930s design, not a 1960s design. So it's a wonderful bit of forward-looking French design. And then it's got these wonderful cultural associations. It's a French detective's car. It's the car in Diva. What's not to love?
It was a very modern. Did you like the way I said it? Modern car.
I see what you did there. That's very clever.
I mean, it didn't look like a modern car. Unusually for Citroen, who often do very futuristic designs, it had some genuinely futuristic engineering. Was it one of the first cars to have fully independent suspension? Am I making that up? You know more about it than me.
Not sure about the rear axle. I mean, the front, sure.
But it looked
not sure
traditional. It looked like a car of its age.
It's got running boards down the side, which then swoop up over the front wheels in your classic, 1930s fenders over the front wheel. As you say, externally, a pretty, I suppose, generic
very
plan
of
car,
though, which gives it a certain sort
of elegance. Absolutely. I think so.
You might have already said that. Sorry, I was
busy
looking up the...
And the thing, and that classic Citroen thing where when the wheels turn, they also get camber and cant as well, don't they? You see Light 15s, traction avant, going round corners, and it looks like they're a motorcyclist leaning in,
Well, it's often to do with Ackermann geometry.
Oh, that's a word. Thank you. That's not a sentence I've heard for a while. I'm shaking his head.
Do you know, have you noticed, of modern cars, modern Mercedes seem, for reasons I've never had a chance to ask anyone who might know these, to have pretty extreme Ackermann geometry. Look at any modern Merc. C-classes and E-classes particularly. I'm not sure about the S, but you look at them on full lock and their wheels really cant over like Citroens used to do. And I don't know why it is Mercedes particularly seems to pursue this sort of Ackermann geometry when other people have moved away from it. It's such an extreme manifestation of it anyway.
And why is it, and this is, I think, unrelated, but why is it that when I see any of those pictures of cars which have been modified to have really stupid camber angles on the wheels, really ridiculously splayed out wheels, it's usually a Mercedes? Why is that?
Well, maybe that's related. Maybe when you drop them to that degree, they naturally splay. I don't know. If you're a suspension engineer, do get in touch and let us know. Also, if you're a suspension engineer and you used to work for Daewoo at their Worthing Technical Centre, get in touch and let us know, because as far as I can work out from just looking on the internet, the Worthing Technical Centre was sold to TWR.
Was he?
And it was down there that TWR were pursuing a lot of their road car projects, including their work for MG Rover. And it seems to be that the place is closed down now. But I can't really find any reference to what might have happened to it or who might have bought it. So if anyone knows, let us know.
That final TWR MG Rover thing, which had the cute sort of rear hatch thing going on, do you know the one I'm talking about? It was the last Rover never to be born. Oh, what was it called? It was a concept. We saw pictures of it. Was that done by them? That's
not the MG.
You
mean like
based on the Italian,
the TF Coupe?
No, not the TF Coupe. It was a
coupe.
hatch, a 5-door hatch,
That show car, what was it called? TCV.
Yes,
washing machine.
Yes, the TCV. Well, was it called that? They have three initials.
It was like
TCF?
a really ordinary-looking 5-door hatch. Looked like a sort of Vauxhall.
It had a good back end, though. I thought something quite original about the back end.
Well, it was a bit like a Lexus RX.
Was that one of theirs?
No, that was done. Well, it was designed by Peter Stevens. Him again. I think it was built by a company in Norfolk. Anyway, we'll see. Anyway, this doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But again, if you know more, do get in touch. What a bizarre plea for just random information this has become.
It may work.
Motorsport now, and former F1 champion Kimi Raikkonen has today called a press conference, believed to be to announce his intention to return to the sport. Our reporter Dan Skidmore is there now. Dan, any news?
Well, Julie, as we speak, Kimi Raikkonen is walking on stage. Let's listen to what he has to say.
I will say, I will tell everybody here, I will call me where, we will see championship.
So, Dan, is Kimi Raikkonen returning to Formula One?
No idea.
Gareth Jones on speed.
I can't wait to hear, Richard, what your cars you haven't thought about for a while is. Can we do some guessing before you actually say?
Yeah, go on, give it a stab.
It's guessing.
Bear in mind, I'll tell you now, the reason that I suddenly thought about this car again was that I was in a petrol station the other day, filling up. There was one on the opposite side of the pumps. So you immediately know it's something you might see on the road. It wasn't a Bugatti Royale or the Pink Panthers car. Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a space shuttle. Go, sorry, guess away.
Is it British?
No.
Oh! Oh, hang on then.
Well, you have to assume I think about obscure old British cars on a pretty much daily basis. This is something I hadn't thought about for a while.
Okay, can we narrow it down? Japanese, perhaps?
Yes.
A Honda?
No.
A Toyota?
Oh, okay, Toyota Crown Super Saloon or something.
No, but I've just thought of the Toyota Century again.
You are. You love
anyway,
that.
carry on.
It's Japanese.
Japanese.
Well, is it the
Honda?
GTR?
No.
Is it a Nissan?
No.
Is it a Toyota?
No.
Is it a Mazda?
No.
Is it a Daihatsu?
No.
Is it an Autozam?
No.
That was part of Mazda. That was.
No.
Is it a
or a Unos or a Z?
Unos?
Is it a sub-brand of one of the aforementioned manufacturers, i.e.
Scion?
No.
Okay.
Was it a Suzuki?
No.
Was it a Subaru?
Yes.
It was the SVX.
Yes, it was.
Oh, yes! I should have said that so loud earlier on.
So I haven't thought about the Subaru SVX.
You can edit
for a
the show
while.
so that you do.
Oh, I love those windows. Well, you know why I love it, don't you?
Well, that's the thing, and I was standing next to it and I could see it across between the pumps, and I was given a very good view of that unique glazing that it has, and it looked great.
Flat six.
And then a sort of older gentleman got into it, and I was quite surprised. He didn't look like a man who would have a Subaru SVX.
Is it silver?
But I'm not entirely sure what a man who has a Subaru SVX looks like.
Hang on. Whoa.
Also has that slightly sort of perspex shield over just in front of the door pillar, doesn't it? Sort of
no, not on those, because I think it was all sort of pretty flush. It almost had like the whole roof line looked kind of like a canopy.
Yeah.
And then the bits of the window that dropped were sort of set into that. And
a theme which Giugiaro returned to in the NASCAR. Do you remember that concept? Yeah.
I think I know somebody that used to have one of those, actually.
Really?
I think.
Now, it was an unusual car because it had a flat six.
Yep.
A boxer six. But in Britain, at least, it was only sold with an automatic gearbox. So maybe an older gentleman getting into it is no surprise, because it was a bit of a luxury cruiser, not a sports car.
I consider myself, now that I'm 50 and 2 months old, an older gentleman, and I would love... I thank you for that, because I haven't thought about the SVX for a long time, and that was a car I was very fond of. Giugiaro design, of course. I mean, you know how much I love Giugiaro. Okay, let's remind people of what this car was all about. Like you said, a flat six. It had this unusual sort of almost glass bubble canopy with sections in the side windows which opened. The whole side window didn't open. It just had a panel that opened, if I remember right. And it had this lovely rear treatment of the way that the rear window sort of blended into the boot line with a sort of a kick-up thing going on there.
I mean, it's sort of something of an air of the sort of, was it Nissan 200.
SX. The front is a little bit more futuristic.
It was futuristic.
Thin headlights, very thin taillights that stretch right on the car. In those respects, quite ahead of its time.
It was kind of sort of Nissan 200 SX meets Logan's Run.
What year was it?
Well, the one I saw, I think it was on a private plate, but SVXs were about 92. They weren't imported for that long. Probably sort of 92 to 94 or 5.
Wow.
The one I saw was sort of like a burgundy-ish colour, dark red. Now, here's the weird thing. It was designed by Giugiaro, and I'm talking about this sort of rather obscure Japanese coupe from the 90s, but in the same petrol station there was an even more rare car, which I think was also designed by Giugiaro. Do you remember ISO? ISO
Griffin, yeah.
Now, ISO did a saloon car.
Don't tell me, my mate Rob had one.
It wasn't called the My Mate Rob.
Revolta.
No, I'm talking about the ISO Fidia, which
I
was
don't
a
know
four-door saloon. And I've never seen one before. I think John Lennon had one. We were talking about John Lennon before we started recording, but yeah, I think John Lennon had one. But around the time he probably then had to imagine he had no possessions and sold it again. But, and yeah, interesting. Looks sort of a bit like a Maserati Quattroporte and very
gentle Interceptor.
Yeah, sort of. No, the original Quattroporte, sort of very long, low, odd-looking car. It's a weird window line where it's sort of normal, and then on the back doors it just goes dink and kicks up in a way that isn't entirely satisfactory. But I think, and I have to double check this, that car was also designed by Giugiaro
in his junior days.
In his junior days at Bertoni, I guess. I should say this petrol station was just near the Goodwood Revival, and I was on my way home from that. So it explains why there's some tasty cars in there, because there was also a Ferrari 328 filling up.
And that was kind of ordinary by comparison.
It really was. Out of the way, Magnum. I'm trying to look at the ISO over there and then enjoy more of this Subaru SVX.
It was burgundy, you said it was. SVX.
No, I know a lot of them seem to be silver, but this one's...
My friend Matthew did have... It was an SVX, but it was cream. That was why I was colour. It was like a sort of cream colour.
There was a period where every single Giugiaro or Ital design concept car was silver. They only did them in silver, and there was a very good reason for that. I can't remember what it was.
Well, when they do styling models,
probably
they do styling models of cars. They always paint them silver, or more often than not, they paint them silver just because it doesn't temper your opinion either way.
Yeah,
and I guess maybe Giugiaro they're used to doing all their cars silver for clients.
Yeah. Well, there's also I can see that there could be a real benefit to being consistent in the colour that you do your own prototypes in, because you're then not going to suddenly think, version B is more popular with our focus group. If you keep the colour constant, you're going to know that it's the design that they're responding to rather than a better colour.
Okay, ask me. Let's play the game, right? What is the car I haven't been thinking about for a while? Do you think you could guess, you guys? Think?
Is it from the 70s?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Okay.
Is it Italian?
No.
Is it Welsh?
No, because I think about that car all the time.
Right,
The Gilbin
Invader. I do think about that all the time.
Is it American?
No.
Well, you had to think about that.
Only because my brain wasn't in gear. No, it's definitely not American.
So there's no link with an American
or ever sold in America, I don't think. No.
Is it German?
No.
Is it French?
No.
Is it Japanese?
Hey. Yes, it is Japanese.
Okay, we're getting to it. Toyota 2000 GT?
No.
No.
I know.
What?
Oh.
What?
Hey,
Girlfriend's
wait,
It's TV's Fire Berlin.
You've been sleeping with this man. You can't tell me this competition. If he's been speaking to sleep, you're going to know the answer. That's cheating.
It's probably wrong. Is it the FTO?
No, it's not the... And I love the FTO.
You remember? He loves it.
I went out to buy an FTO. When I bought this Sora, I went out to buy an FTO, but I didn't... No, good guess, though, V.
Isn't there the FTO where there's almost none left in Japan because they've all been imported?
With crazy silencers. Yeah. No, it's about as far removed from the FTO as you could be for a Japanese car.
Is it one of those microcars?
Yes.
Oh, it's a Suzuki Cappuccino?
Suzuki WizKid.
It's the correct answer!
Nice work.
I've not thought about a Suzuki WizKid until you just mentioned that.
Yeah, the Suzuki WizKid, or to be more correct, the Suzuki SC100, and in Britain it was the SC100 GX model, which came with lots of spec, like a cigar lighter and stuff. You know the car I'm talking about? A little rear-engined Kei car, a Japanese micro car. In Britain it had the engine that went in the Alto, or one of the Suzuki vans, which is like a 4-cylinder 1-litre engine. In Japan they had
when you say van, you mean that tiny Suzuki van?
Yes, in the UK, the GX... Now, you mustn't look it up here because I want to to reveal something about this car, which you will find.
The reason I've got my computer is because there's that website, How Many Left?
Yeah, 39.
Oh, you've checked?
Of course.
Wow. Are there any for sale?
Yes, there are. I've looked that up as well. You go to the Suzuki website, the fan club website. There was one for 200 quid. There was one for 3,500 quid. There was one for 1,500 quid.
Price range.
I'd say.
And they're all runners.
I'll go for the 200 quid one.
Exchange and Mart hasn't got any. Auto Trader hasn't got any, but the Suzuki fan club has. I've always had a passion for this car, as I had for that little Honda N600, was it called? The N600, the tiny little orange thing. My dad had a passion for this car as well. He used to have a Ford Cortina estate. He said one day he would buy one of these with a trailer. But here's the shocking thing, without looking it up, Richard and Zog, what years was this car available in Britain? Do you remember?
Off the top of my head. Oh, look here, there's one on Car and Classic.
Oh, there it is.
Well, it doesn't say a price, but it does rather look like there's not entirely all of it. Yes.
No front end.
Well, no, but you've got all the metal there. That's just cosmetic bit you need to put on. You need a grille, you need a bumper.
Imagine, well, here we go. We need to get back to our
this is where your bit of 3D printing comes in.
I need a grill for my WizKid.
What years? Yeah, go on.
From memory, I think it was about 78 to 83, something like that would have been on sale in Britain.
I'm going to go a bit longer than that. I was thinking late 70s, so I'll go with you 78. I'm going to raise you a couple of years on the other end. I'm going to go 78, 85.
It's interesting. I'd have gone, if anything, I think it's one of those cars that might have been brought to Britain in, for sake of argument, 78, but was actually on sale in Japan from like 75 or something. Gareth, do you know the answer to this?
Yes, I do, yes. It originally appeared in Japan as the Suzuki Cervo, or Cervo, I don't know how you pronounce it, Cervo, from about 1972.
No.
Yeah, really? Yeah. But in the UK, the 100GX, the car we called the WizKid, only in the UK, was 79, not 8. Very good. But only until 82 when stocks ran out. And there was a waiting list for them. They sold like hotcakes and helped establish Suzuki in the UK as a brand. How good was that?
Endorsed that car by LJK Setright.
That's right!
That's right! And a man of enormous wisdom, generally, although almost impenetrable writing to a precocious 10-year-old trying to read car magazine, and I had no bloody idea what it was on about.
No,
it's only now I
very
can
kind of
struggle
Donish,
to understand
distinctive.
It's like reading Shakespeare, reading Setright.
Yeah.
And I think maybe
wonderful writing.
His writing,
a legend.
I read Car from the minute I could read, and I think his writing about that car clearly influenced me. I remember him saying that it was in effect a micro Porsche. If Porsche ever decided to build a city car, this would be it. And I harboured a desire to buy one and take the Suzuki badges off and put Porsche badges on it, a little rear engine thing. It would have been beautiful. But here's the thing about this car, which I had no idea about. I've always loved this car. I had no idea until I read about it earlier on today. This car was designed by my favourite designer, Giugiaro. Did you know that?
What? No.
Ital Design.
Really?
They did the Cervo, or the Cervo, which is the predecessor to that car. And for the UK market, this was basically the second generation. They tipped the windshield, the facelifted version, came a bit more upright and tidied up, but it was basically his design. No wonder I love that car. I love everything Giugiaro does. And I'm so pleased that you chose one as well. That's beautiful.
Well, there we go. Well, I think that's probably it, isn't
it?
Let's just take a moment to reflect on... He's not dead. Well, we hope he's not, but the genius of Giugiaro.
You've been listening to Gareth Jones on Speed, or as I prefer to call it, the Giugiaro fan club, with Zog.
Goodbye.
And Richard.
Goodbye.
And Violet Berlin over there.
Goodbye.
And me over here. See you for the next one. Actually, that's not it. I'm going to play out on a bit of music for you. Here's a little something I cobbled together in the style of the Proclaimers, or in our case, the Reclaimers, for copyright reasons. Considering the fact that the World Rally Championship is staying in Wales, I think it's only fair that the Scots have a shout and they get it back at some point. So this song is called We Want the Rally Back. See ya.
There was a time when forests ran with a happy sound, but today you'll hear a twig break on the ground. It's time again for cars to trumpet their attack. It's our refrain because we want the rally back. We want the rally back. I already own a bobblehead. We want the rally back. We do, we do, we do. Oh, we want the rally back. I already own a bobblehead. We want the rally back. We do, we do, we do. it's your turn. You've had the rally for too long. We're just like you, we've got a fashion filled with pride. And just like you, we'll keep a welcome in the hillside. We want the rally back, I already own the bobble hat. We want the rally back, we do. We want the rally back, I already own the bobble hat. We want the rally back, we do. Come on now, it feels like ages since we've had WRC stages. Let's bring it back, we love rally lots. And that's not because the last two British champs were Scots. Look, I know Richard Burns was not a Scot. For heaven's sake, he had a name that clearly was. And I know we've got the IRC, but it's not a patch on the WRC. So we want the rally back, I already own a bobble hat. We want the rally back, we do. We want the rally back, I already own a bobble hat. We want the rally back, we do. Nico Hirvonen, Matty Räikkönen, Tommy Mäkinen, Ari Vatanen, Juho Anninen, Henri Toivonen, Juha Kankkanen, Harri Jones, Seema Lampinen, Roy Toivonen, Matty Räikkönen, Seppo Mäkinen, Timo Salonen, Timo Mäkinen, Kimi Räikkönen, Harri Robertson. We want the rally back, we do.
To send us an email, see pictures, get song lyrics, join our Facebook fan site or follow us on Twitter, go to GarethJones.tv. Gareth Jones on Speed is made in London by Whiz Bang.
Gareth Jones on Speed!